Hey, what's up everybody? Welcome back to another day at BS for Build. In today's episode, we're going to be aligning the 240. I'm going to show you how to do it at home as well with some pretty simple tools. This is going to be a four-wheel alignment starting at the back, moving to the front. So if you had like a crash car or a car that you've highly modified or replaced a bunch of suspension components or something like that, this is the alignment that you need to do. But we are only going to be focusing on the most important type of alignment, which is toe alignment, getting all the wheels facing forward on the vehicle. Stay tuned. First thing that we need to do doesn't really have to do with alignment that much, but the right rear is still a little bit lower than the left rear. So I need to go in there, make the adjustment one more time. The strut is adjustable with by unscrewing it, so I gotta unscrew it down a little bit, raise that strut up so it has a base height similar to the one on the left. Okay, I got the car all the way squared up. It's the same height off the ground on the right and on the left, off the fender, right and left. I leveled our checker level on the frame as well as the engine. That's all level. Everything's good. I actually had to adjust the front strut as well, but the camera did not catch that. So everything has been adjusted. Everything's all square and got us to a good starting point. The other thing that I did was find our driving height. So I checked all the air pressure and the height off the ground and everything like that. This is the height that we're gonna drive around at. And you need to figure that out because you gotta do the alignment at the height that you want the car to be at for driving. So we may lower it down for show, but then we'll air it up to the exact PSI. I wrote it down, and that's what you set your alignment to. So what that means is at home, if you're watching this, if you lower your car, you gotta do another alignment. If you raise your car, you gotta do another alignment. As you raise and lower your car, your toe and other things will change, so you need to do the alignment. Starting on the alignment, this next step is one of the hardest steps. You need to get the car in the air so you can get underneath it, and you also need the suspension compressed to its like ride height, like it is right now. So the easiest way I think of doing that is by putting the car on its tires, sitting the car on its own wheels, but up in the air. But you could also do it just by compressing the suspension. Like if you want to put you lift it up, put jacks under the frame, and then lift up and compress with the jack the suspension, and then put a jack stand underneath the control arm, the lower control arm. You might be able to do it that way. What I'm going to do is a pretty simple way, and you can buy these supplies down at Home Depot real quick, is I'm going to put a cinder block under each wheel. So I'm going to jack up the car, put a cinder block under each wheel, and then lower it back down. The one sketchy thing about that is cinder blocks can break. They can basically just start to crumble. They can fall apart. They can crack in half because they're not really as strong as rocks, even though they seem like rocks. So to make that a safer situation, what I'm going to do is I'm going to put jack stands under the frame of the car all the way around. I actually have 6 jack stands in the shop right now. I'm going to place all of those under the car. That way, if a cinder block does break, the car will immediately be stopped by the jack stands from falling on you. Cinder blocks aren't safe, but they can be used to compress suspension. Now that I got the car up on blocks and it's holding its own weight, but it's up high enough that I can access the toe adjustment arms, we're gonna go ahead and place our measuring devices for the rear. So I'm gonna show you 2 different devices that you can use. This is what's called a toe plate. You can find a set of these online for about $100. They have these nice little slots in them for your measuring tape. And the way that this works is you put it on, you're gonna need to get another cinder block, a level surface up against your wheel. There's some little standoffs that go in here actually, so it's up against the rim of your wheel and not the tire. And then what we're gonna do is you do the same thing on both sides. You center it up, and then when you run a tape, from here to the other side. If you get the same number here as you get in the front and the back, then you know it's a square, right? So you can do the same thing in theory with a level. You get a little bit longer one than this because you can see it doesn't actually poke out past the wheel. And you're gonna wanna measure off the height of your reference point. So you could say, all right, I'm gonna go 6 inches up off the bottom of my wheel. And then you go like this, you level it out so you know it's level. And then maybe either use a clamp or a set of bungee cords or something like that. So it stays here and it doesn't move. Again, you're gonna want something longer than this. If you do that exactly the same on both sides, then you can just run your tape, measure it, say from the edge of this one and then the bottom edge of that one, run your tape and you'll get the same measurement. So you might not have to spend all the money on the toe plates because it is about 200 bucks, but since this is BS for Build and we mess up a lot of alignment on a lot of cars, we're definitely gonna need to use these a bunch. So I actually bought 2 sets, one for the front or one for the rear and one for the front, which in theory you wouldn't need to use all two sets at once, but we'll get into that later. So I'm gonna go ahead and set up my toe plates right now on the rear. And then what we're also gonna do, well, I'll tell you the other step for the measurement after we get it all set up. Okay, so you can see how we get these things set up. They have these little standoffs they set against the wheel right here, and it should be in the same height, same position on both sides. Now there's a little spot for tape measure to run between them, so from this side to that side. Hopefully we won't hit anything on the way, or it'll really defeat the purpose of having these things. The exhaust looks a little sketchy, but that's what I'm gonna do right now, and we'll just run the tape and see what our alignment looks like right now. All right, so you can see how this is gonna start to go. You run the tape from side to side and it creates a square, and then you read the values. Now, on this car right now, we are way off of alignment. You can see over here, we're at about 76¼ inches. And then when we come over here, we're at about 74.5, or a little shy of that. So we are extremely towed out. The two rear wheels are towed out this direction, which is really bad for driving. Some cars like a tiny bit of toe in, but it's literally so small. It's like this car, to have the correct amount of toe in, meaning the two wheels are gonna be tilted in a little bit, is 1/32 of an inch less on this side than on this side. And we're inches off. So next step is we gotta start to adjust our rear. So to do that, we need to find a center point. Now there's a lot of different center points that you could talk about. You could find the center point of the body, but we welded the body onto the frame in a pretty arbitrary way because the body doesn't really matter. You can find the center point of the frame. That's pretty close, and that would be a good start, but I'd rather find the center point of the rear subframe. So that's what I'm gonna go off of, and that's what I would advise doing back home too if you're doing this on your own. So find two reference points, like two outside points of the rear subframe, measure it, find your center line, make a mark, and then what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna measure from the outside of my toe plate, or you could pick any arbitrary matching part from the inside of the wheel or anything like that. As long as you can find the same way to do it on both sides of the car. I'm gonna measure from the outside of this toe plate to the center point that I'm gonna create on the rear subframe. And I am going to get the same distance between this one from here to the center point and the other side to the center point. If I get the same distance, then they will both be essentially squared up to the rear subframe. They should be straight. So then when I do this again, we should see really close to straight numbers on both sides of the tape. I've just finished up aligning the rear, and I don't really feel like I explained the center point very well, but here, let me just explain very clearly what you have to do. You gotta make it square, so both the tapes read the exact same measurement, but you also have to make it so from your center point to the outside of this plate, and from your center point to the outside of that plate, is the exact equal measurement. That means that your wheels are centered within your subframe as well as squared on each other. Because if you don't do that and you don't center up that point, what can happen is you can make a parallelogram. Imagine if both the wheels were just the exact same amount pointed out, then the measurements from there to there and there to there would be the same, but they would be the same staggered. So what we're doing is we're measuring from here to the center of the car, same over to the center of the car. You guys get it by now. Now's the fun part. We get to test how straight our subframe is on our car. I'm gonna run a string from way back here to way over there, parallel to our plate, and let's see what it looks like. Okay, we got our strings ran and it shows good signs. One thing is that when we do a 90-degree angle measurement between that string and that string back here, and then we go all the way up to the front over there and we do the same measurement, we get the same distance between the strings. And these are parallel with our plates right there. So that means that our rear wheels are really nice and straight. These seem to be paralleling with the vehicle. There's no like drastic change. It's not like that one's like 3 feet away from the front wheel or anything like that. So that's a good sign as well. So now we're gonna go ahead and move on to the front. Now, with a lot of these alignments, a lot of people just do front end wheel alignments and they're just gonna throw their plate on here like this. They're gonna do their 2 tapes like that and that, and they're gonna make sure that the 2 wheels are the right distance, meaning the toe is straight, but they could be parallelogrammed out, right? They both could be turning left or both could be turning right. And the way people normally deal with that is they just tilt their wheel a little bit to the left or to the right, and that's now straight for them, and they keep driving like they always would. But I don't want to do that. I got my steering wheel set to center. I also have the computer for the BMW calibrated and actually recalibrated to that being dead center. So I want to get these straight, parallel with the back wheels. So what we're going to do is we're going to leave this line here. We're going to move our setup over to this thing, and I'm going to be very, very careful not to bump either of these lines. So these lines represent the parallel to the rear. And then what I'm going to do is I will go ahead and slide that over. Oh, by the way, the toe adjustment is, there's a rod right here in the back. That's the toe adjustment. You crank it that way or that way, and it will either toe out or toe in for anybody that's trying to find that at home. And on here, it's the rod that comes out of the steering rack. If you don't know what that is, I don't know, maybe don't try this at home, but it's pretty easy to find, and it's an adjustable threaded rod that runs into the knuckle of your wheel, and it comes from your steering rack. So you'll be able to find it underneath there. So what we're gonna do is I'm gonna bring the plates over. We're gonna parallel up the plates with the line first on each side, and then we will double check by measuring our plates, and we'll finish it off with perfectly paralleling each wheel to itself. All right, that was kind of a cool test of the string theory, get it? String theory, versus the plates as well. So what I did was I aligned the plates with the strings, but then I also, after we had it all done and set so everything was aligning up with the string, I checked it with the tapes, and you can see here that we are at 73 and 73. 73 and an eighth and 73 and an eighth. And actually, just by dumb luck, we are about a 32nd toe in. And a 32nd of an inch toe in on these boards on the board on the other side, it's got the calculations as to how it works out, is the right amount of toe in that we want. We actually had that on both sides. So 32nd of an inch of toe in is good. So that is exactly what BMW wants for their M5. So I guess that's what I want for my 240Z. Last step now is just to jump under the car and tighten up all of the things we loosened for the adjustability. So that's the steering rack arm adjustment, toe arms. I'm not gonna pretend I know the name of them all. The toe arm over there and the toe arm over there, they got bolts on them, they got nuts on them. I'm gonna tighten them up. All right, we got everything tightened down, and in theory, the car is aligned. Again, now that is just a toe alignment. There's still camber, which this car has camber. We're not taking it out. And then there is caster, which, you know, screw it. I'm not messing with that stuff. That's over my head. So all the wheels should be pointing the right way, and it should drive a lot better now. I would love to go test it, but it's 2 a.m. and I'm not going to wake up the whole neighborhood to test it. So you will see the test, and I'll be very honest about the results in our next episode where we are driving. That's it, guys. The car is aligned. We're one step closer to flooring it on the open road. I got to get registration and some other good things. And we got to find a spot in the weather. Unfortunately, the rain is coming. It looks like we have only one day. It's a lot of rain, guys. It's a lot of rain on the forecast. But I'm going to just take my shot whenever I can find it, the dry spot that I can find that fits in the time slot. I'm not going to sit around for a week waiting for some dryness. Whatever we can do, we'll take the car out. We'll hit it, we'll thrash it, we'll make it awesome, we'll get some good shots, and I'll show you guys what it can do to the extent that we can figure out. What else? Happy Thanksgiving. Guys, tomorrow morning, we're gonna be dropping, like super early, maybe basically today at midnight, I'm going to drop a special Thanksgiving episode, so check that out. And also, tomorrow, for those of you guys that are either Twitch Prime subscribers, YouTube sponsored people, whatever they call that, the YouTube helping out supporter thing, no air quotes, you guys do support, or a Patreon supporter, there's a special episode for you guys that unveils the new build. I'm unveiling the new build early to you guys. So if you guys want to get on that, well, it's not too late, you still have all day to do it. But I just want to say thank you guys so much for all you that support that way. So I'm going to hit y'all with that early unveiling of the new build. That's it, guys. Everybody have a happy and safe Thanksgiving, and I will see you tomorrow. Peace!
Come on.